It started like most dumb things do. After school, boredom, and a little too much confidence in our own invincibility. There were 5 of us. Me, Jordan, Dev, Sarah, and Marcus. We were all seniors, trying to soak up the last bits of freedom before graduation shoved us into the real world. It was one of those cool spring days where the air smells like wet asphalt and budding leaves, and everything feels just edgy enough to make you want to do something reckless. We ended up at the edge of the outer city, where all the half-demolished warehouses and old textile factories stand like empty bones. The building we went into used to be a meat processing plant, I think. At least, that's what Marcus said. It had been shuttered since the mid-90s. You could see the rust bleeding down the sides of the metal siding, and half the windows were broken out, gaping like shattered mouths. A chain-link fence wrapped around the whole place, but the gate had been pulled open long ago. The inside was dark even in the daytime, with thick concrete walls and rooms too deep for sunlight to reach. We brought flashlights, just the cheap plastic kind you buy at gas stations, and a couple of cans of spray paint. That was mostly Jordan's idea. He wanted to leave a mark somewhere before we graduated. Honestly, I didn't think anything of it. We'd tagged train bridges and old underpasses before. This just felt like another dead place waiting for dumb kids to make it slightly less dead. The moment we stepped inside, it felt like the air changed. It wasn't colder exactly. It was heavier, like the air didn't want us there. But we didn't talk about that. We just joked around. Sarah lit a cigarette and started poking at random machines with a piece of rebar she found. Dev was trying to climb up onto one of the old conveyor belts. The place still stank faintly of grease and mildew, and every step echoed like we were inside a giant steel drum. We explored the front part of the plant first. Offices with broken glass everywhere, filing cabinets dumped out, mold curling on the walls like skin disease. I remember Jordan tagged a huge red skull over one of the doors and wrote, "Class of 2025" underneath it, like it was some kind of gravestone. Our flashlights flickered every now and then. I figured it was the batteries. I didn't think much of it at first. It was Marcus who wanted to go deeper in. "Come on," he said, motioning us down a side hall that led toward the back of the plant. "The kill floor's supposed to be back this way." Dev cracked up at that. "Kill floor? That sounds metal as hell." The hallway was narrower there, with flaking paint and a bunch of faded warning signs in red lettering. The floor had weird brown stains that might have been oil, but also maybe not. We passed a few more broken doors, one of them hanging crooked on its hinges like it had been kicked in. There was a lot of debris, scraps of insulation, old hoses, crumpled up paper, twisted chunks of metal, and always the sound of our own footsteps echoing back too loud, like something deeper was mimicking us. We turned a corner and came into a big open area, maybe 50 feet across, with high ceilings and rusted catwalks overhead. There were metal hooks dangling from chains above, slowly swaying even though there wasn't any breeze. "I think this was it," Marcus said. "The slaughter room." Sarah muttered something about how it looked like a level from Silent Hill, and Jordan tagged another wall with a cartoon pig getting its head chopped off. We all laughed too loud, mostly to cover up the unease curling in our guts. Then we heard the noise. A loud, hollow clang, like something metal dropping far off down the hall. We froze, all of us. For a second, nobody said anything. Then Dev whispered, "Probably a pipe fell or something." We all nodded too quickly. Still, we moved on a little quieter after that. There was another hall beyond the big room, even darker than the others. Our flashlights barely cut through it. The walls were lined with old lockers, most of them hanging open and empty. A few still had boots or hard hats inside. One had a photo taped to the door, just a faded family picture, the faces long gone gray. Then we saw the person, just standing at the far end of the hallway. None of us said anything right away. Our lights caught him like a deer on a highway. He was maybe 40 feet away. Still, silent, arms at his sides, face half in shadow. I thought at first it was a mannequin, or maybe some kind of cutout someone left behind. But then he moved. Just slightly. A shift of weight. A twitch of the neck. He was real. And he was staring at us. Sarah was the first to say it. "Who the fuck is that?" Marcus stepped forward a little, like an idiot. "Hey, you live here or something?" That's when the guy screamed. It wasn't words. It was just this raw, furious howl, like someone being torn in half. He sprinted at us full speed, his footsteps slamming against the concrete like gunshots. We screamed and ran. I don't remember much of the next few seconds, just that blind animal panic when your brain stops thinking and your legs take over. I heard Sarah shriek behind me, heard Dev yell something about his flashlight. One of them must have dropped it, because suddenly the hallway behind us was even darker. A clatter and a skidding sound, then more running. We didn't know where we were going. We just ran. Twists and turns, rooms that looked identical, doors half shut, random debris everywhere. I crashed into a desk and nearly tripped. Marcus shoved a cart over behind us, trying to slow the guy down. At some point, I realized we'd gotten separated. I didn't know where Sarah or Dev were anymore. It was just me, Jordan, and Marcus. Our breaths came in ragged gasps, flashlights bobbing wildly, sometimes hitting nothing but empty space. We ducked into a side room, a break room or something, I think. Metal chairs, a collapsed table, vending machines that looked like they'd been pried open with crowbars. We slammed the door shut and leaned against it, listening. Nothing. Just our own wheezing, and the way my heart felt like it was trying to punch through my ribs. Jordan whispered, "What the hell was that guy?" Marcus shook his head, clutching his side. A squatter? I don't know. Jesus. We waited maybe a minute before opening the door again. The hallway was empty. The silence was worse than the noise. We tried retracing our steps. Didn't work. Everything looked wrong. The corridors blurred together. Every intersection looked like the last. I swear the graffiti we'd sprayed earlier was gone. And then we started hearing the sounds again. Not yelling this time. Just movement. Scuffling, scraping, something dragging on the floor, always ahead or behind us, never close enough to see. Once, we passed a room where the door was half open. I glanced inside. There was a mattress on the floor, torn up clothes, bottles, buckets. Someone lived here. We were in someone's home, and we'd pissed them off. Eventually, we found Dev. He was hiding under a steel counter in one of the side labs or processing rooms. His flashlight was gone, and his lip was bleeding where he'd bitten it. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. He didn't even speak at first, just stared at us like he wasn't sure we were real. Sarah wasn't with him. We found her about 10 minutes later. She'd climbed up into the rafters above one of the catwalks, hiding with her knees pulled to her chest. When we called her name, she didn't answer until we got right underneath. "I thought he had me," she kept muttering. "I thought he had me." All 5 of us were together again, but the relief didn't last. The building was wrong now, somehow darker, quieter. It felt like the air had teeth. We just wanted out. Jordan thought he recognized a stairwell that might lead to the loading dock. It was barely wide enough for one person at a time, and the steps creaked so loud I thought they'd snap under us. Halfway down, we heard something moving below. Big, wet sounding, like skin slapping concrete. We froze. Then, from behind us, another sound. Footsteps on the metal grating we'd just left. We were between two things. Nobody said anything. We just backed up the stairs and bolted in another direction, deeper into the building again, because that's all we could do. Eventually, by what had to be some miracle, we found the loading dock. I don't remember who spotted it first, but I remember the color of the light, real light, seeping through the gaps in the loading doors. Pale gold, like salvation. We sprinted. Didn't stop even when Dev twisted his ankle stepping on a pipe. Didn't stop when we heard that scream again, behind us. We pushed the door open and stumbled out into the gray daylight like survivors crawling out of a mine. The outside air felt thin and clean. We didn't say anything. We just walked back to the fence in silence, climbed it, and got in the car. Nobody argued on the ride back. Jordan drove, hands shaking on the wheel. Sarah was crying but trying to hide it. Dev held his ankle and stared at nothing. Later that night, we tried texting each other about it, tried making it into a joke, calling the guy Meat Man or saying he was probably just some cracked out squatter trying to scare us. But I remember his face, the way he screamed, like he wasn't just angry. We'd invaded something sacred, violated a space he'd lived in so long it wasn't even part of our world anymore. A week later, Jordan went back to the building with a couple other kids from our school. They didn't see anything. But when they got to the hall where we'd seen the man, they found a new message spray painted on the wall. "Stay out." And underneath it, in smeared red paint, were 5 little stick figures. One for each of us. We never went back. It was just supposed to be another explore and record night for the channel. That's what we do. Urban exploration. Urbex stuff. You've probably seen 100 channels like ours. Two dudes with cameras, sneaking into abandoned buildings, whispering into night vision like we're ghost hunters, throwing in some history and jump cuts to keep it interesting. Ours is called Wasted World, and yeah, we've faked a few things in the past. Door closing by itself? Marcus pulling a string? Creepy voice? That was me in post. People love the thrill even when it's bull. But nothing about St. Agnes was faked. We went in around 11:30 that night. It was raining, which sucked for our gear but looked great on camera. The hospital was one of those early 1900s monsters. Red brick, slate roof, tall windows, all punched out and jagged. It had been shut down since the early 2000s, officially because of infrastructure issues. But if you dig into the forums, there are all kinds of theories. Patient abuse, satanic rituals, a nurse who poisoned 12 people, take your pick. We thought it was perfect. Marcus even said it might be our breakthrough video. We parked 2 blocks away and climbed through a hole in the fence behind the loading dock. The brick was stained black around the windows, and ivy had eaten half the exterior. Every step inside felt like we were walking into a throat. Everything was wet and crumbling and weirdly quiet. No raccoons, no rats. Just the sound of our boots crunching on plaster and broken glass. We set up cameras right away. 2 GoPros on chest rigs, 1 handheld for close-ups and extra cuts, plus mics and LED flashlights. I had a backup battery pack strapped to my hip. Everything worked fine. At first, the entry hallway had a reception desk tipped on its side and wheelchairs tangled in vines. The air smelled like mold and something sour. Marcus started narrating for the intro. History of the hospital, date of closure, all the usual. I did a slow pan of the peeling walls, zooming in on old patient records soaked into the floor. We kept whispering, even though we knew no one else was there. It just felt like we were being watched. About 20 minutes in, we found the elevator shaft. The cables had been cut, straight drop, but someone had scrawled something on the elevator door in red spray paint. They never left. Classic, right? We laughed it off. But then Marcus pointed out something I hadn't noticed. The red paint had dripped, not like spray, like it had pooled and oozed down the door, fat and viscous. And it was still wet. I touched it. It stuck to my glove. Not spray paint. Not at all. We started hearing noises about 30 minutes later. Not pipes or wind. This was something moving, shuffling, dragging, the sound of something soft brushing across linoleum. It was always just out of sight, 1 floor above or below. We'd stop to listen, and it would stop too. I turned off my mic once and just stood still. In the silence, I could hear it breathing. We found the first blood in what used to be the maternity wing. It wasn't fresh. It had dried in long black streaks on the floor, smeared like someone had been crawling. There were bloody handprints on the walls, some high up, like they'd been thrown or someone had flailed in panic. I filmed it, of course. This was gold for the video. Marcus wasn't as excited. "This doesn't look staged," he said, staring at the dark smears. "This looks like someone died here." We moved on faster after that. The decay was worse the deeper we went. Ceiling tiles hung like diseased skin. Furniture was overturned everywhere. There were patient beds with the restraints still attached. Some had buckles worn from use. Then we hit the psych ward. It was down a separate corridor, metal gate left open and rusted like old blood. Inside, the rooms were smaller. All the windows had bars. We tried to joke around. Marcus pretended to get locked in one and screamed at the camera, classic horror thumbnail bait. But the air was thicker there. Almost hot. It stank. We kept catching whiffs of it. Rot. Not like garbage. Not mildew. Something organic. Wet meat. Sweet and sick at the same time. We thought it was a dead animal. Probably a raccoon or something, we said. We were wrong. We found the body in a back room that looked like it had been an exam area or maybe a storage closet. The door was half open. The stink hit us before anything else. Marcus gagged and stepped back, but I kept the camera up, slowly pushing the door open. He was slumped against the wall. A man, probably middle-aged, shirtless, pants bunched at his ankles, skin waxy and gray, bloated in places and sunken in others. His mouth hung open, eyes gone, or maybe just shriveled. Maggots nested in his chest cavity where something had carved him open. It was real. Not a prop, not staged. I nearly dropped the camera. Marcus threw up. We backed out of that room fast. Marcus wanted to leave. I wanted to call someone, but there was no signal. Not a single bar. We started retracing our steps, but the hallways didn't match what we remembered. The maternity wing wasn't where we thought it was. We passed a stairwell that had been blocked earlier, but was now open. It felt like the building was shifting, like it didn't want us to leave. The shuffling sound came back. Louder now. Closer. At one point, we turned a corner and found fresh footprints in the dust. Bare feet, long toes. Some of them smeared like whatever made them had been dragging 1 foot behind. Marcus whispered, "Is someone still here?" I didn't answer. I just kept filming, but my hands were shaking so bad, the footage was probably useless. We found a room with a broken gurney and locked ourselves in. Stayed there for maybe 10 minutes, long enough for the breathing outside the door to stop. When we came out, things were worse. The air was hot. The lights on our cameras kept flickering. The stink was so bad, Marcus had to tie his hoodie around his face. I thought I saw something at the end of the hall, a figure standing just beyond the edge of the flashlight beam. It didn't move, didn't speak, just watched. When we pointed the light directly at it, it was gone. We ran. No more filming, no narration, just pure panic. We got split up near the emergency ward. A door slammed behind us, and I turned around and Marcus was gone. Just gone. I screamed for him. No answer. Ran down one hall, then another, not even sure I was going in the right direction. Eventually, I found the exit. Same broken window we'd crawled in through. It was raining harder now. My clothes stuck to my skin. The cold felt like relief. I waited in the car for over an hour. I almost went back in twice. Called out for him. No answer. Still no signal. He stumbled out around 3 a.m., covered in dirt, blood on his hands. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then he said this: there was someone in the walls. He wouldn't elaborate. He still won't. We scrubbed the video. Didn't upload it. We told people we lost the footage, that it was corrupted, which was true. Half of it didn't save. My mic recorded a bunch of static and some clicks I couldn't identify. A few frames showed something crawling past in the background, just a blur of skin and limbs, but it was gone when I slowed it down. We never went back. It was supposed to be one of those bucket list explores, you know? The kind that Urbex kids drool over in forum threads. Huge, untouched for decades, no security, rich history, just enough danger to make it fun. I'd read about the Marrowstone Correctional Facility when I was 13. The state decommissioned it back in the 90s after a string of inmate deaths that got swept under the rug. Most of the buildings were gutted, but one wing had been sealed off completely, supposedly because the floorboards were unstable. That was the part we wanted to see. It was me and my friend Caleb. We run a small YouTube channel, Unseen Places, and yeah, it's mostly just us poking around condemned malls or silos in the woods. We had maybe 10,000 subscribers, not enough to quit our jobs, but enough to make us stupid sometimes. We drove 4 hours to get there, hopped the rusted fence behind the old loading area. The complex was sprawling, with busted out windows and roofs caved in like crushed cans. The sky was this pale gray, the kind that makes everything feel like it's stuck in a memory. Caleb had the camera. I had the backpack with extra lights, snacks, and bolt cutters in case we needed to find our way in. We filmed the usual intro, wide panning shots of the structure, a little voiceover about the prison's history. The usual: overcrowding, underfunding, abuse, rumors of prisoners disappearing, staff suicides. Classic local legend stuff. The main building had collapsed in the center, so we stuck to the side halls. Metal doors hung off hinges, broken furniture everywhere. Everything smelled like rust and mold. We found a cafeteria where vines had burst through the walls and tangled over the lunch tables like green veins. Caleb whispered, "This is the kind of place you get tetanus just looking at." We spent about an hour filming B-roll, climbing stairwells, finding old cells with tally marks scratched into the concrete. Then we found the sealed-off wing. The door had been boarded up with 6 thick planks and rusted bolts. A sign was barely legible behind them: "North Wing Condemned, do not enter." We entered, cut through 2 of the planks with the bolt cutters before the rest came loose on their own. I mean that literally. They creaked and popped free as we were still working. We figured maybe the wood had rotted. Beyond that door was a long hallway, pitch black except for our flashlights. The air changed instantly, like walking into a sealed freezer. The mold smell was stronger here, but there was something else beneath it, something faint and sour. Caleb whispered, "You feel that? The pressure?" I did. It was like something heavy pressing down on my chest, like the air was denser here. The light beams from our flashlights looked dimmer, like the darkness was swallowing them. Still, we kept going. The cells here were smaller. Some still had mattresses, ripped open like they'd been clawed from the inside. The paint on the walls had bubbled and peeled into strange organic shapes. One had the word "stay" carved over and over into the wall with something sharp. Another had a rope hanging from a light fixture, the noose still intact. We recorded everything. At some point, Caleb stopped walking. He was staring at one of the cells, frozen. I said his name. Twice. He turned slowly and said, "Did you see someone just now?" I hadn't. He said, "In that room. Something moved." I swept my flashlight across it, just peeling walls and broken metal. Nothing there. Still, we were quiet after that. A few steps later, we started hearing noises. Not our own steps. Something else. Not close. Just somewhere in the dark. A dragging sound, metal on concrete, then a thud. Caleb whispered, "Maybe a raccoon or something." We both knew it wasn't. At the far end of the hallway was an intake office. The glass on the viewing window had shattered and dried blood streaked the counter. Long, brown-black smears like something had been pulled over it. There were old security monitors on the wall, dead screens, some of them shattered. Paperwork rotted into the drawers. A broken chair lay on its side, one leg snapped off. Caleb zoomed in on the blood and whispered, "Was this ever investigated?" I didn't answer. There was a stairwell behind the office, leading down into what had to be the lower holding cells or isolation rooms. I didn't want to go down there, but we did. The stairs creaked like bones under our weight. Each step sent up a smell of rot and damp. At the bottom was another hallway, narrower. Here, our lights struggled even more. The concrete walls were wet, pulsing with condensation like skin. We passed a shower room with handprints on the inside of the tile, some small, some not. And then we found it. A body. Real. Not staged. Not animal. It was slumped against the far wall in a holding cell, half in shadow, dressed in what looked like janitor clothes. Skin bloated, face unrecognizable, one eye sunken in, the other just gone. Flies covered the torso, and the smell hit us so hard I gagged. It wasn't old. Maybe a few days. Caleb dropped the camera. I dragged him back and made him breathe through his shirt, and we both stared at that thing, neither of us knowing what to say. This wasn't "we found bones" kind of content. This was "we walked into a crime scene." We turned around to leave, finally realizing how screwed up this all was. That's when the lights went out. Not our flashlights, the emergency lighting in the stairwell. I don't know how it even turned on in the first place, but now it was out and the hallway behind us was black. And we weren't alone anymore. We heard breathing, low, wet, uneven, like someone struggling to breathe through mucus. It came from the direction of the stairs. We stood there frozen, lights shaking, Caleb whispering, "What the hell? What the hell?" Then something stepped into view at the top of the stairs. Just a shape. Too tall, shoulders hunched, arms long, almost dragging. No sound but its steps, slow, as it started coming down toward us. We ran, back through the hallway, past the showers, around the body. We heard it behind us, not running, just following. Steady, calm, like it knew we wouldn't find the way out in time. I was leading, barely breathing, heart about to explode. Caleb was behind me and he suddenly screamed. I turned, flashlight flailing, but he was just standing there, eyes wide, looking behind him. "There was another one," he whispered. I didn't ask. I just pulled him forward. We got to the intake room again, or what I thought was the intake room. But it wasn't right. The monitors were different. The blood was fresh. There were scratches on the glass, dozens of them, like fingernails clawing. We hadn't come this way before. The hallway behind us was wrong. Everything looked the same, but different, a shift we couldn't explain. The building didn't want us to leave. Caleb started to panic, spinning in circles, yelling, "This is the wrong way. This isn't right." Then we heard the voice, faint, like wind. "Come back." Male, whispered, but clear. We spun toward the hallway. Nothing there. "Come back," it said again, a little louder. No echo, no reverb. Like it was spoken next to us. We bolted. I don't know how long we ran. We were both crying. Our flashlights started dimming, the batteries finally dying. My camera was dead weight in my hands. I dropped it without thinking. Eventually, we stumbled into a chapel. Yeah, a prison chapel. Wooden pews, a cross half melted into the wall from a fire. Everything was scorched, blackened. It reeked of burnt plastic and meat. And in the center of the room was a chair. Strapped to it was another body, or what was left of one. Leathered skin, no eyes, no tongue. The jaw had been dislocated, hanging open in a silent scream. Around the chair were candles burned down to stubs, blood soaked into the floorboards. Something had been done here. Something recent. That's when the pews behind us moved. We turned. They weren't pews anymore. They were people, or had been, all facing forward, sitting perfectly still, skin pale, eyes gone, like mannequins. One turned its head toward us with a sound like paper tearing. We screamed and ran. Caleb tripped on the steps. I grabbed him and hauled him up. My muscles didn't even feel real anymore, just panic and instinct. Finally, we found the hallway we came in through. I recognized the graffiti we sprayed earlier. We ran through the broken door, down the hall, up the stairs, burst out into daylight. But it wasn't morning. It was still gray, still raining, still the same, but the building looked different. The windows were boarded now, the graffiti was gone. The car was there, but rusted. Tires flat, like it had been sitting for years. We didn't say anything, turned the key, it started. We drove. Didn't stop until we were 2 towns away. When I checked my phone, the date hadn't changed, but the time was 4 hours later than it should have been. Caleb hasn't spoken much since. He quit the channel, deleted every video we ever made. He won't return my calls now. I still have one clip, a short one that somehow survived the wipe. It's static for a few seconds. Then the camera lifts. It's Caleb's face. Close up. Crying. He says it's still in me. Then something behind him moves, and the clip ends. I've watched it 100 times, and every time I do, I see something different in the background.